No one asked for this. Anyone with even a glancing interest in Metal Gear or gaming could tell you, this abomination didn't need to exist. I'm pretty sure Konami, the ones wanting to bring this unholy thing to market, can tell you, no one wanted it. So, why? What are you doing? You know, at first I thought it was because Konami wanted to shut down Kojima Productions, so they forced the team to work on a game that would be considered a failure, critically and commercially, giving enough of a reason for them to dismantle the studio. This was until I found out that Konami kinda already shut down the studio. The silver lining being that the head of the studio, Hideo Kojima, took many of his team members to the new studio. So why does Survive exist? Before we can get to that question, I think it's a good idea to take a look back at what happened between Konami and Koji Boy. Don't worry, this video won't contain any spoilers for any of the games. Anyways, if you already have a pretty good idea about what happened, since, it was all over the internet, you still might have missed a thing or two. To truly understand what happened, we have to go to the very beginning. Mr. Koji, born in 1964 in Setagaya, Tokyo. Okay, maybe not that far back. Kojumbo worked on the first Metal Gear game back in 1987. The series wouldn't see any major hikes in popularity until the PS1 era, where it was brought into 3D. Released in 1998, the first Metal Gear Solid game sold more than 6 million units worldwide. Even by the really high standards set by most publishers now, I'm looking at you, Square Enix, you pieces of shit. MGS1 would be considered a commercial success. Fast forward to 2008 and the world saw the release of the fourth mainline series installation. That's 4 main games in 20 years, just to see Solid Snake's Solid Snake.
I wrote a blog post a while ago about why I hate video games, because this is what it does, it appeals to like the male fantasy.
By this point in time, the annualization of video games was just starting, but franchises overall were seeing more and more games released in shorter times. Call of Duty already started churning out sequels, like Sean Murray spewed out false claims about No Man's Sky. By the time MGS5 rolled around in 2015, it was 7 years after the fourth. Konami and Kojoujo up till 2014 had a pretty good relationship, or so it seemed. In 2014, Konami made our boy in charge of the next Silent Hill game. The demo for which was called PT was hugely popular and well received critically. Konami ended up cancelling the game, a game for which the demo alone was scarier than many full-length horror games. Smart move, you guys. And after that, rumors began of Konami letting go of Kojami. No one really knew what had happened in the company, but over the year this took place in, a lot of information started coming out. Now, much like most of the video, the next part is highly speculative. A composer that worked on MGS 1, 2, and 3, Rika Muranaka, came out at the time and stated that she believed that Kijiji was just too expensive for Konami. He got paid a salary, so the sales figures didn't really go into account on how much money he made at the company. Rika believes that he was fired because he'd always go way over budget and deadlines. I'd imagine all those butt physics in MGS4 probably took a lot of resources to develop after all. Oh come on, it was a joke, everyone, calm down, I'm sorry. You also have to take into account that it must have taken forever for the boob jiggle physics. Even though his salary was a low cost to the company, the games ended up costing the company a lot more than they initially planned for. Sure, they ended up making great profits in the end, but Mr. Kijiji ended up always going over budget. One has to assume this rubbed Konami the wrong way. I mean, any boss would be pissed if the employee constantly ignored orders, even if the employee was a golden egg-laying goose. Around early 2015, Konami announced a very large corporate restructuring as well. A whole video can be done to that. In fact, one already is by Jim Sterling, who did a pretty damn good job. I'll leave the link down below in the description. In short, Konami during 2015 turned itself into a horrible place to work at. With a shift from gaming to pachinko machines, employees deemed useless were given menial tasks. Employees taking breaks longer than what they needed were publicly shamed, and the internet connection to many employees was cut off too. Who wouldn't want to work in a paradise such as that? I think the battle at the end was between the egos of the executives of Konami and Kokoro. The end result of this fiasco was Golden Boy being let go of the company very shortly after MGS5's release, and his production company being dismantled too. Now that we're done with the history lesson, kids, we still don't have a reason for Metal Gear Survive's existence. Okay, stay with me here. At first it might sound a little crazy, you know what, even after it will, but I think that this game's main reason for existing is to take a jab at Kojima and his production team. Boy, that's an expensive jab, I hear you saying. Here, let me explain. Throughout the year of tension between the organization and Kojam, Konami treated him quite deplorably. He was deadlocked by lawyers into not being able to say anything about the matter, his name was removed from every promotional media for MGS5, and he wasn't even allowed to attend the award ceremony that awarded MGS5 the Best Action Adventure Game. Although in 2016's award show this made for quite a great moment where Kojira received a Lifetime Achievement Award and confessed his love for Jeff Keighley.
I thank you all for your support. I love you, Jeff. And Game Awards.
Now, I'm not saying Kojinko is without fault. He's done some pretty heinous stuff himself. One thing that instantly comes to mind is cutting off David Hayter, the voice for Solid Snake and Big Boss from MGS1, all the way up to MGS4. And who did he get to replace Hayter? A Hollywood actor named Kiefer Sutherland, the guy who's been the voice for the main character for 20 years as Can because Mr. Big Shot wants big names to be involved. David Hayter wasn't even given a formal letter or anything, he was just not included in the staff for the new game. In general, Kopiko is getting more Hollywood figures to be involved in gaming. On one side, this move gives more weight to gaming and legitimizes it even further in mainstream media, and on the other, it gives less opportunities to voice actors, and it ends up inflating the budgets of the games as well. But this video is already as speculative as possible, so we'll leave that topic behind. Regardless, Kochinchin is not a paragon of a person, but even still, he probably didn't deserve the treatment Konami dished him. Speaking of the devil, I have a feeling that Konami treated him this way for two reasons. One, the obvious being that the executives at the company are petty little children, and they're willing to risk a PR disaster, which is exactly what they got, in order to make a man's life as miserable as they possibly can. Two, the not so obvious reason. The executives at Konami flexing their power over their employees is a move showing what kind of treatment awaited those who would defy their superiors within the company. Basically, by showing that they can treat even their biggest stars like this, no one was safe if orders weren't followed. Just to get this out of the way, when I talk about Konami, I'm referring to the executives in charge, the people with the real power, not the people at the grassroots level just trying to make a living. Back to topic. If Konami can risk a huge hit to their brand name by publicly treating someone the way they did, I think it's safe to say they might have gone one step further to make a game that started off as a jab to Kojima Productions' legacy. Do note, I say started off because with all the recent announcements, it seems like Konami is trying to make Survive as profitable as possible with its non-loot box based microtransactions that apparently don't affect gameplay. Look at that. We've finally come to the point in time where I can be happy that a microtransaction system is just that, and not one that's riddled with loot boxes.
One thing has become clear. This is the darkest, most terrible timeline.
Its low release price of $30 USD, and lastly, its attempt at marketing the game off as a survival-based building game, a genre that has seen a rise in popularity recently, but what Konami is mostly doing is just chasing trends to make this thing palatable and try to make it break even on the costs, which I'd imagine aren't that high because they seem to be reusing a lot of assets. Nothing wrong with that as long as the game is good, but come on, have you taken a look at this thing? What might have started out as a jab is now something that the company needs to break even on, and if it makes a profit, then even better, because in their eyes, the jab will have even more power, and their decisions of firing Kojutsu will be legitimized. Imagine the executives saying to one another, "We reused assets and made a bare minimum effort game, and it still made profits." We never needed that boy after all. All the while not realizing that they've destroyed all goodwill people had towards the series. Or hell, maybe they do realize it and they just don't care? Even if the game somehow ends up being good, it will no doubt sully the name of the series because the series always tried to tell an engaging story before it focused on the multiplayer aspect. Granted, the story kind of got out of hand more often than not, it still prioritized the story. And the series was always about political espionage, intrigue, and to a lesser degree, subtlety. A very lesser degree.
Who are you? Just call me Deep Throat. Deep Throat.
This new game seems to have none of what interested the people in the older games. Survive's idea might work for something else, but I don't believe it'll do anything but destroy any remaining faith people still had in Konami. They could have remade MGS3, a game I heard people were saying they'd buy on day one, even knowing after what had transpired. Funny thing is, Konami already had many assets for it because they made a pachinko machine for the game with a brand new Fox engine for the models and graphics. I remember the day when the trailer for the machine came out. The first 30 seconds or so of it seemed like we'd get a new MGS3 remake. And then there it was. Betrayal. I saw pachinko. In that moment, I knew how Icarus felt when he flew too close to the sun. Releasing an MGS3 remake could have turned public opinion on the company. Not entirely, but it would have helped. And it would have definitely kept the series in good light at the same time. But Konami already has taken a backseat to gaming now. They don't make many games, they just sit on their licenses. Survive failing could very well mean that they will never make another worthwhile title afterwards. Most people in the know already accepted Konami's exit from the industry, but the failure of this game will cement it. No chance of seeing another Silent Hill, another Castlevania, a good Bomberman game, or the revival of Suikoden or Zone of the Enders. So many good franchises lost. People will most likely lose their jobs too, as the teams for these games will no longer be required. And for what? Because some executives valued their egos more than anything else? The thing that hurts the most is there is a space for all these games to exist in the marketplace. Not every game needs to be a multiplayer experience that will earn you an unimaginable amount of profit. Games that make an organization profit while increasing the brand name of the organization is what's more important than anything. The brand name a company has is its best asset. That's business 101. Yet, gaming companies always forget that. I'll definitely explore the subject more in another video, since this one's already kinda long. For now, I'll leave you with this. Whatever really happened between Kojima and Konami, we may never know. Whether my opinion of why Survive exists is right or wrong, we may also never know. But we do know one thing for sure. Give us that MGS3 remake, Konami. Alright, if you've made it this far into the video, thanks for watching, and do subscribe if you like this type of content. We're trying to get more of these type of videos out as often as we can, given the time limitations, and hopefully we'll see you in another one. Thank you.